The psychology of choosing toxic partners again and again is not an accident. It's a looping script where the subconscious keeps chasing a familiar pain, hoping to finally defeat it. A person walks into the same river over and over because their brain mistakenly reads emotional chaos as real passion. Deep inside, they're trying to love someone into becoming warm, attentive, safe, like rewriting the story they never got to finish. And every time they believe, this time the ending will be different, and I will finally be enough. Stable, healthy love often feels strangely boring to them. Not because they don't want peace, but because their nervous system doesn't recognize peace as love. Their body is trained on adrenaline, on waiting, on guessing moods, on reading microsignals like survival depends on it. And when a relationship is calm, it doesn't feel safe. It feels unfamiliar. It feels like something is missing, like they're about to be abandoned any second. So they unconsciously return to the kind of person who activates the old fear, because fear feels like home. And this is the cruel part. Many people who repeat toxic relationships aren't naive. They're not stupid, and they're not blind. They often see the red flags early. They sense the manipulation, the coldness, the power games. But their brain still pulls them in like a magnet, because the attraction isn't coming from logic, it's coming from conditioning. From the deeper layer of the psyche that says, if I can make this person love me, I can finally prove I'm worthy. If I survive this again, I'll finally win the war I've been fighting since childhood. Let's talk about what's really happening inside the mind and nervous system when someone chooses toxic partners repeatedly. Because the pattern isn't just emotional, it's biochemical, it's psychological, it's deeply learned. And once you see the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself and you start breaking the loop. The first reason toxic love feels so intense is because it doesn't create connection the way healthy love does. It creates obsession. A stable partner gives you clarity. A toxic partner gives you uncertainty. And the brain responds to uncertainty with fixation. When someone is inconsistent, warm one day, cold the next, your nervous system enters a state of constant scanning. It starts monitoring their tone, their replies, their mood changes. You replay conversations in your head. You analyze every message like it contains secret meaning. This isn't romance. This is hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is what happens when your brain expects danger. It's the same mechanism that keeps you alert in a threatening environment. It makes you focus on what could go wrong, on what could be taken away, on what you must do to stay safe. In toxic relationships, you aren't bonding through trust, you're bonding through survival instincts. And the mind confuses that intensity with love because it feels powerful and consuming. Now add a second layer, intermittent reinforcement. This is one of the strongest behavioral conditioning systems on Earth. It's the same mechanism behind gambling addiction. When rewards are unpredictable, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, the brain becomes hooked. Keeps trying because the next reward might be coming. In toxic relationships, the reward isn't money. It's affection, a compliment after an insult, attention after silence, apologies after emotional damage. That emotional hit after deprivation feels like euphoria. So the relationship becomes a chemical cycle. Stress hormones rise during conflict or uncertainty. Cortisol, adrenaline, tension. Then, when the person finally gives you validation, relief floods your body. Dopamine spikes. Your brain registers it as pleasure and connection. The contrast makes the relief feel like love. It's not real intimacy, it's a stress release loop. You're basically becoming addicted to the emotional whiplash. This is why people often say, when it's good, it's amazing. And that sentence is the trap. Because healthy love isn't amazing only when it's good. Healthy love is safe even when it's hard. Toxic love is a roller coaster. Unbearable lows and intoxicating highs. And your brain learns to crave the highs because they feel like rescue. There's also something else toxic partners often do. They trigger your attachment wounds. Attachment is the system in the psyche responsible for bonding. It forms early in life and it teaches you what love feels like. If you grew up with consistent care, your nervous system tends to associate love with safety, predictability, and respect. But if you grew up with emotional unpredictability, a parent who was loving sometimes and distant or critical at other times, your system may learn that love is unstable. Then, as an adult, stability can feel emotionally dead. Not because you're broken, but because your brain doesn't trust it. It's like your nervous system was trained in a chaotic environment and now it can't relax in peace. It says, where's the tension? Where's the chase? Where's the struggle? And that's how you end up attracted to people who replicate the same emotional climate you knew before. A classic real-life example. Someone meets a partner who is calm, consistent, kind. They communicate clearly. They don't play games. And the person feels uneasy, not excited, not obsessed, just calm. And they interpret calm as no chemistry. Then they meet someone else who is intense, mysterious, unpredictable, and a little emotionally unavailable. Suddenly their heart races. Suddenly they can't stop thinking. Suddenly it feels like fate. But what they're experiencing is not a soul connection. It's a nervous system activation. The brain loves what it recognizes, even when what it recognizes hurts. Another reason this pattern repeats is the rescuer identity. Some people grew up being the emotional caretaker. Maybe they had a parent who was unstable, depressed, addicted, angry, or simply emotionally immature. So the child learned, my job is to keep the atmosphere stable. I must be useful to be loved. I must fix, calm, help, adapt. Love became a performance. Safety came from managing someone else's mood. Then adult relationships become a continuation of that job. The person doesn't just want love, they want a mission. They feel valuable when they're saving someone. They choose partners who are wounded, broken, selfish, dramatic, or emotionally chaotic because those partners activate the familiar role. If I can heal them, I'll finally feel secure. If they change for me, I'll finally matter. But toxic partners rarely change because you love them harder. In many cases, they change only enough to keep you attached. They give you hope in small doses. They improve for a week, then go back to the same behavior. Not always because they are evil, but because the relationship dynamic is built on imbalance. One person gives, the other takes. One person doubts themselves, the other controls the frame. One person apologizes, the other avoids accountability. And the rescuer becomes trapped because leaving feels like failure. They invested so much emotional energy that walking away feels like wasting years. They start thinking, I can't leave now. I've already put too much into this. That's not love speaking. That's sunk cost thinking. That's the brain protecting itself from the pain of admitting, I chose someone unsafe. I ignored my intuition. I hoped this would be different. The mind would rather cling to a painful story than face the grief of ending it. Now let's talk about why boundaries become blurry in this cycle. Many people who choose toxic partners have learned that their needs are too much. They feel guilt for asking for basic respect. They fear being seen as demanding, so they tolerate behavior that slowly erodes them. Sarcasm, disrespect, silent treatment, jealousy disguised as love, control disguised as care, and toxicity often starts small. It doesn't begin with obvious cruelty. It begins with love bombing. Intense attention, fast closeness, grand words, being chosen. The brain floods with dopamine. The person feels special, finally noticed, finally wanted. And when the intensity suddenly drops, it creates panic. The nervous system thinks, I'm losing the source of my worth. So the person chases. They over-explain. They overgive. They become anxious and agreeable, hoping to restore what they felt at the beginning. That first phase becomes the emotional drug, and everything after becomes withdrawal. This is how trauma bonding forms. Trauma bonding is not love. It's an attachment created through cycles of harm and relief. A toxic partner hurts you emotionally, then soothes you emotionally. And because the soothing feels like rescue, your brain attaches even more. It's like being trapped in a burning building and the person who lit the fire is also the one offering you oxygen. That dynamic creates confusion. You start saying things like, "They hurt me, but they're also the only one who understands me. They're not always like this. Deep down, they're a good person. They had a hard life, and maybe they did." But your empathy becomes a cage. Your compassion becomes self-abandonment. Toxic partners often use subtle psychological tactics that reinforce this loop. They might minimize your feelings. They might call you too sensitive. They might deny what happened. They might twist reality so you doubt your memory. This creates internal instability. And when you doubt yourself, you become easier to control. You start relying on them to tell you what's real. Once your self-trust is damaged, leaving becomes terrifying. Because now it's not just, "I'm ending a relationship." It's, "I'm stepping into the world without the person who defines my reality." Even if they hurt you, they became the center of your emotional universe. Another real-life example. Imagine someone named Anna. She dates someone who disappears for days, then comes back with intense apologies and affection. When he's present, he's charming and loving. When he's absent, she feels sick with anxiety. She checks her phone constantly. She can't focus. She thinks about what she did wrong. Then he returns, and the relief is so strong she cries and forgives him. The brain learns pain relief bonding. Over time, her body becomes addicted to the cycle. Even when she wants to leave, her nervous system panics because it associates leaving with emotional death. People often ask, why don't they just leave? The answer is, because the relationship is not just a choice. It's a conditioned nervous system response. When you've been trained to connect love with fear, your body interprets separation as danger. It's like your brain is screaming, "Don't let go, you'll die." Not literally, but emotionally, as if the attachment is oxygen. Now let's go deeper. Why does the psyche chase someone who doesn't fully choose them? One reason is core belief repair. Many people carry an invisible belief like, "I am not lovable unless I prove myself," or "People leave when they know the real me," or "I have to earn love." Those beliefs are usually formed early, not through one dramatic event, but through repeated emotional messages. Maybe you were praised only for achievement, so you learned love equals performance. Maybe you were ignored when you cried, so you learned emotions are unsafe. Maybe you were compared to others, so you learned you must compete for attention. And later, toxic partners feel familiar because they confirm the old belief. If deep down you feel unworthy, you will gravitate towards situations that recreate that feeling because the mind tries to resolve it. This is the hidden paradox. The psyche repeats pain not because it loves pain, but because it wants mastery. It wants a different ending. It wants to finally win. It wants the unavailable person to become available, the cold person to become warm, the inconsistent person to choose you consistently. It's like the brain is stuck in a loop saying, "If I can change them, I can change the past." But this is where the trap becomes brutal, because you're not in a relationship with a person anymore. You're in a relationship with a fantasy, with a future version of them, with the hope that one day they will be safe. And every time they do something kind, that hope gets stronger, even if the kindness is followed by disrespect again. Toxic relationships keep you living in the future. Healthy relationships keep you living in reality. So how do people break this cycle without becoming cold, numb, or never trusting again? The goal isn't to shut down love. The goal is to retrain your nervous system so love feels safe again. The first step is to separate chemistry from compatibility. Chemistry is often nervous system activation. Compatibility is consistent respect. If someone triggers obsession, anxiety, or the need to prove yourself, it's not a sign of destiny. It's a sign of an attachment wound being touched. Ask yourself, do I feel calm around this person? Or do I feel like I'm auditioning for love? The second step is learning to read your body as data. Toxic attraction often comes with tension in the chest, stomach knots, restlessness, racing thoughts, constant checking. That's not romance. That's stress. Healthy attraction can still be exciting, but it includes safety. You don't lose yourself. You don't shrink. You don't beg for basic care. The third step is boundaries without guilt. Many people think boundaries are punishment. They're not. Boundaries are self-respect in action. A boundary is simply the line where your nervous system can breathe. It's saying, I will not negotiate my dignity. If someone disappears, insults, manipulates, or creates constant uncertainty, the boundary isn't please stop. The boundary is, if this continues, I step back. Because you can't force safety out of someone who benefits from your insecurity. The fourth step is confronting the fear of boring love. This is big. When you start choosing healthier partners, your brain may feel withdrawal. It will say, this doesn't feel intense. This doesn't feel like love. But what you're feeling is the absence of adrenaline. You're feeling peace, and your system doesn't trust it yet. You might even feel discomfort, like something is missing. That's not a sign you chose wrong. It's a sign your nervous system is detoxing from chaos. Sometimes healing feels empty at first because you're no longer living on emotional survival mode. The fifth step is grief. People underestimate this. To break toxic patterns, you often have to grieve the fantasy. The one day they'll change story. The dream of finally being chosen by the unavailable person. The hope that your love would fix them. Letting go of toxicity is not just leaving a partner. It's leaving a role you've played for years. The rescuer, the fixer, the patient lover who understands. That role might have been your identity, and without it, you might feel lost. But that loss is the doorway to a new self. Someone who doesn't chase love, but receives it. Here's a simple mental exercise. Imagine you meet someone who treats you exactly the way your current partner does. You don't know them. They're a stranger. Would you allow that behavior? Would you tolerate the disrespect, the silence, the inconsistency? If the answer is no, then what you're feeling isn't love, it's attachment. It's history. It's conditioning. Love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. And finally, remember this. Toxic people are not always monsters. Sometimes they're wounded. Sometimes they have their own trauma. But empathy is not a reason to stay in a relationship that destroys you. Understanding someone's pain does not mean you must volunteer to be hurt by it. A healthy relationship does not require you to suffer to earn closeness. It doesn't ask you to shrink to be accepted. It doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't punish you for having needs. It doesn't turn love into a test you constantly fail. If you keep choosing toxic partners, it doesn't mean you're doomed. It means your nervous system learned a certain version of love early on, and it's trying to repeat it until it feels familiar enough to survive. But you can retrain it. You can teach your brain that calm is not boring. Calm is safety, and safety is the foundation where real intimacy grows. So if you've been stuck in this loop, don't ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Ask, what is my brain trying to complete? What familiar pain am I mistaking for passion? What part of me believes I must earn love? Because once you see the script, you stop being the actor who suffers inside it, and you become the author who rewrites it. And maybe the most powerful shift of all is this. The moment you stop trying to be chosen by someone unstable, you become available for the kind of love that doesn't require you to bleed for attention. The kind of love that doesn't come as a storm, but as a home.